What is up, Trek fans? Welcome back to Task Force Viking. I'm Captain Ironsides, and today we're going to watch a game that I played on Tabletop Simulator. This will be, of course, Star Trek Attack Wing, and it's going to pit my faction pure Romulan Sledgehammer fleet against my opponent's competitive tournament fleet. My fleet is faction pure restricted. His fleet is anything that's tournament legal is fair game. So we got a little bit of a mismatch there, but I think this Romulan Sledgehammer fleet is good enough to be able to get in there and really hang, even with some of those really big, hyper-competitive tournament fleets. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, we're going to take a little bit of time and review my opponent's fleet. I'll go through it, let you guys watch me go through it card by card there so you can just kind of get a look at what he's playing. I'm not a tournament genius or really even an attack wing genius at this point in time, so rather than try to narrate to you exactly what it is that he's trying to do, I will let you look at the cards that he's got, and you can kind of draw your own conclusions from there. Let's get that going, and I will check back in just a minute. Now that you've had a look at both fleets, I want to take a quick minute and do a quick intro on this particular match. A couple things you should know. First of all, I've never seen my opponent's fleet. This is the first time I've ever flown against it, and I frankly am not a very established attack wing player, so I'm not really entirely sure what it is that he's trying to accomplish with it, even though I've seen the cards. The second thing you should know is that he has actually played against my Romulan fleet before. He played it in the Faction Pure League that we're running, so this is his second time to go against my Romulan fleet, where it is my first time to ever see the fleet that he is putting on the table. The last thing I would mention is just a reminder, my fleet is restricted Faction Pure for Romulans, and his fleet is completely unrestricted. As long as anything is tournament legal, it's fair game for his fleet. So those are a couple things that you should probably consider when watching this match and seeing how it plays out. Also bear in mind, I've only been playing Attack Wing for about 2 months. My opponent is one of those individuals who has actually been playing, I believe, since the game's inception. So he's got many years of experience on me as well. That's going to bear out as we watch this, as we play through this game. But just a couple things I wanted to make note of in advance. Let's go ahead and get the setup finished and jump right in. A couple of quick housekeeping items for you guys to be aware of. My captain, Salatrell, has selected Independence as the ships that it will use for her ability, and we actually messed that up several times throughout this match, and basically I got Salatrell's 10 skill captain regardless of what opponent was in my arc. So basically I had a choice. I could get both Klingon ships by naming Klingon, or I could take the independent ships, which were the Burrell, and I think that's a Gorn ship, if I had named the Independence. So I chose to name Independence, but again, I think I ended up getting deference no matter what was in my arc. So that was a little mistake we made. And the other thing to know is that his Captain Core selected my Romulan scout vessel, which also happens to be my fleet's flagship. which was a very good selection for him, and that was one of those things where having played my fleet before really paid off for him. That was a beneficial selection. I don't think it actually had any impact in the game at all, but just making that selection with core is evidence that my opponent paid very close attention the first time he played this fleet, and basically knows more or less exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, setup is complete. We've selected the playing mat that we're going to use. My opponent has placed his mines, and we're ready to go to dials for round one. Alright, that's round one in the books. It's pretty clear my opponent's going to attempt to flank me with his Klingon ships. He is making good use of his Chemosite on that Burrell, and then he's slow rolling the individual Lone Hunter ship over there. As for me, I just did a straight one and a cloak. Both of us pretty conservative in the first round. Let's see what happens for round two. Alright, so again, round two, I play it pretty conservative with a straight one and evade for my entire fleet. My opponent continues to use Chemosite and attempt to flank me with the Klingon ships, and his lone Hunter ship is going to move forward at a straight one at a very slow pace. I honestly expected him to speed up and engage me, and I should have realized that he wants to set up his flanking maneuver so that they all hit me in the same round, and that really only works if I let him get away with it. And my instinct told me I need to get up there and get in the fight, but for some reason I just held back and played conservative. I'm at least pleased that I had the right instinct. I'm disappointed that I didn't trust myself and that I slow rolled it. This was a major tactical error for me, and you're going to see this play out here over the next couple of rounds. I should have done a straight 3, maybe even a straight 2. And the straight 1 conservative play here really was a big tactical error for me in this match. So once again, I slow roll my fleet forward with speed 1 straight maneuvers. He slow rolls his Gorn Raider with the same maneuver, speed 1 straight. His Klingons continue to attempt to flank. They don't quite get within firing range, but we do have the Scimitar and the Gorn Raider just barely within range 3 of one another. Unfortunately, had I gone a little faster in round 2 or a little faster in this round, I could have had him right where I wanted him with both Riemann Warbirds in range for attack. Unfortunately, as it is, he got me right where he wanted me, where he has only one ship in range, and the next round he's going to have the entire fleet within range. He is going to go ahead and use his Disruptor Bombardment. He has a mechanic in that fleet that will allow him to bring it back online next round, and so he will use that plus his Lone Hunt to add dice to his attack. My opponent ends up with an excellent roll. He does have, I believe it's one of his officers that lets him do a reroll on a dice up to twice. And he ends up with 4 hits, 2 crits. It's a pretty nasty hit coming in. I'm going to roll my defense dice. You'll see I only get 2 evades despite rolling 6 dice. I do have a token, so I could take 2 crits and a hit, that doesn't seem like a really good idea, especially on the opening round, so I go ahead and use my interface generator, which is a win for him to get that knocked off the scimitar so early. Comes the fun part where I get to shoot back. The scimitar has a primary weapon value of 6. However, because it is within range 1 of Captain Dinatra on my flagship, I do get an extra dice, so I'll be throwing a 7 dice attack against him. And I am within range 1 to 2 of the Romulan flagship, so I do get a free reroll on whatever dice I choose. So it's basically like a free target lock reroll. It makes this fleet very, very consistent. My initial roll actually winds up being great. It has 2 crits and 4 hits, 1 battle station. I will use the flagship rerolls to reroll the battle station. Unfortunately, it comes up another battle station, so the attack stands at 4 hits and 2 crits. My opponent has an ability, I don't know if it's a captain ability or what it was, that cancels a crit. And then when he rolls his dice, he does roll 2 evade, so he actually does a pretty good job of canceling a significant piece of that attack. He winds up taking 3 hits to his shields. 3 hits to his shields in this case represents about a third of the strength of that particular ship. Had I had both Romulan warbirds in range, it's very possible I would have destroyed him this round before he ever got a chance to take a shot at my flagship. Into round 4 we go. My maneuvers again pretty straightforward. Straight 1 and evade for all of my ships. My opponent actually does a bank left with the Gorn Raider, and he does in this round manage to complete his Klingon flanking maneuver, bringing both Klingon ships within range 3 of Torith. So my Romulan warbird, the generic, is actually going to take fire from all 3 ships in this round, and it's going to prove to be the round that really penalizes me for not doing a better job of anticipating my opponent's tactical decisions. Round 4 begins. It's my initiative, and Captain Salatrell does have Captain Skill of 10 because she has a independent in her forward firing arc within range 1 to 3, so she will fire first, despite the fact that her and Core both share Captain Skill of 10. You'll see me grab a 8th die here. I thought we were within range 1, and then when I go zoom in on it, I can see that we're actually just barely outside of range 1. That's one of the cool things about Tabletop Simulator, is the range measurement. It's very precise, and it's very easy to see if you're there or if you're not there just by kind of scrolling and zooming in. So there's really no debate or no argument to be had there. So this is definitely a range 2 attack, 6 dice primary, +1 for range 1 of Dinatra with flagship rerolls. This proves to be an awful roll. 1 hit and I think 4 battle stations. Pretty awful, but this actually showcases the value of the flagship. I get a free reroll on all of those dice, except of course I keep the hit. So very valuable tool. Reroll turns out to be pretty fantastic. 3 crits and 2 hits when it's all said and done. 2 battle stations I can't do anything with because I am Romulan. Opponent cancels one crit again, rolls his defense dice, gets 2 battle stations, which he can't do anything with, and so he takes his first crit, which is a console fire. Second crit is a jostled navigator. I was really hoping for a direct hit here so I could finish this ship off. And now, unfortunately, my opponent will return fire. He is going to use his Disruptor Bombardment. He has all ships within range, so he will be able to roll a pretty big attack against every ship in my fleet right here. These are going to be 8 dice attacks coming in. That's absolutely brutal. Fortunately, his first roll against Torith is not very good. It comes out with 2 hits and a crit after he gets his re-roll. I'm down 2 defense dice because he has a double scan. I roll my 4 defense dice. I get 2 blanks and 2 battle stations. I can't do anything with either of those. I do have an evade token, so my choice is spend the evade token and take a hit and a crit, or use my interface generator and take just 1 hit. Saving a single crit doesn't seem like the best use of an interface generator, and so I ultimately decide to roll the dice and take the hit and the crit, and you're about to see the result. So the one thing that I don't want to have happen here is to take a Warp Core Breach, and wouldn't you know it, the 1 crit that I take is a Warp Core Breach. This is actually going to be the first in a long line of very unfortunate dice rolls / critical hit cards that are going to hit me in this game. Luck was not on my side tonight. Crit turns out to be a Warp Core Breach. Worst case scenario for me in this particular option. Again, just not, things were not going to go my way with dice and crits in this game. The next attack from his Disruptor Bombardment is going to target my scout ship. He is going to end up with 4 hits and 1 crit. That's after he does his re-roll. And I'm going to be rolling 6 dice. Normally the flagship rolls 8. Again, he has a double scan, so I roll 6 defense dice in this case. Not a bad defense roll. I end up with 2 evades. Nullifier Core allows me to re-roll a blank. It ends up with an evade as well. So 3 evades on the dice, 1 evade token, meaning I only take 1 crit. So again, all I need to do in this case is avoid a direct hit, and I'm okay. Of course, the crit turns out to be direct hit. The scout ship only has 2 hulls, so the direct hit crit is enough to take it off the board. That is the scout ship, that's my Romulan flagship, that is the support ship that makes this fleet really, really good, and I lost it right there in round 4. Disruptor Bombardment's not done yet. He still gets to shoot at the scimitar. He rolls 3 hits and a crit. He does get that 2 dice reroll, or the single dice reroll twice, and that ends up paying off for another hit for him. The scimitar is not cloaked. He has a double scan, so I get 0 evade dice. I have 1 token. I spend my token, and I will take 3 to the shields, which effectively wipes the shields off of the scimitar, meaning it can no longer cloak. Now both his Klingon ships just barely have range 3 on my Riemann Warbird. Once again, had I just gone a little bit faster in the 2nd or 3rd round, they don't have range and I don't have to take these 2 attacks on my Riemann Warbird here. My opponent's going to opt to use his For the Empire card, knowing that that will probably, in fact, he can guarantee perfect quality, so it will guarantee that I use my interface generator on this first attack. So, by the power of Grayskull, or something, my opponent has 7 dice attack with For the Empire. He can guarantee perfect quality, and he ends up with an attack roll of 4 crits and 3 hits. And of course, I'm going to use my interface generator because that's just absolutely nasty. Next up, my opponent's going to attack with his Burrell. He gets a 4 dice primary weapon attack. He ends up using, I think, War for somebody to convert the blank, and winds up with 3 hits and a crit. Once again, the theme of the night, the defense dice really let me down. I roll 6 defense dice, I get 1 evade, and so I have to take a crit and 2 hits. If that crit is a direct hit, the ship will be destroyed. this case, this is the only time tonight the crits will be kind to me. The crit I receive is a munitions failure. This is virtually meaningless to the build of this ship. So that's, in the realm of crits, that's about the best one I could hope for. It will take away my charging weapons, but frankly, I don't care that much about my charging weapons. My opponent was hoping to wipe Torith off the map with that attack, and had he been able to do so, this game would have been an absolute slaughtering. He came 1 damage short, so fortunately Torith survives to exact a little bit of revenge on behalf of our beloved flagship. I don't get my extra dice for Denatra because she is dead, and I don't get my rerolls because the flagship is destroyed, so I am only rolling a 6 dice primary weapon attack, naked, no quality. I do end up getting 4 hits, which is enough to get the job done. With that, we close out round 4 and go to dials for round 5. Losing my flagship was absolutely brutal. This round definitely favored my opponent, and this is the round where he made me pay for my tactical mistakes early in the game by slow rolling up towards his Gorn Raider. If I'd moved a little bit faster, we could have avoided this disaster, or at the very least I wouldn't have had to have all that damage coming in on Torith without being able to retaliate. Start of round 5, I will roll for my warp core breach. I get a blank, so Torith survives. My opponent will go ahead and use projected stasis field on Torith to prevent him from being able to attack, which is a brilliant maneuver. And once again, the flying that my opponent does is absolutely fantastic. He positioned his fleet exactly where he needed to, and again, Torith is the only ship that actually has arc on his 2 remaining ships. And of course he drops a projected stasis field on Torith, so the one ship I have that can attack is not able to because of projected stasis field. The Scimitar has no arc on anybody, and this was just a brilliantly set up maneuver by my opponent. My opponent attacks with the battle cruiser. He gets 2 hits, 2 crits. At that point in time, considering I can only roll 2 defense dice and I only have 1 hull remaining, there's nothing I can do about it. Torith's going to die. And again, I am thoroughly outclassed when it comes to piloting in this game. That was just brilliant positioning. Alright, time to move into round 6. Nothing super exciting maneuver-wise in this round, except I do actually, for the first time in my attack wing career, manage to make a sensor echo that leaves my opponents in my arc while taking myself out of theirs. So I'm actually pretty darn proud of that particular maneuver in this round. And I think I will attempt to use my Romulan non-existent skills to sensor echo. Although I probably should have target locked, but whatever. That was fun. Oh, nice. Hey! I did something Romulan. I have arc on both of his ships. Neither of his ships have arc on me. Ultimately, I opt to fire at Core's battle cruiser. It's already taken quite a bit of damage. A few of the abilities that my opponent used actually damaged his own hull to make them work, so that ship is nearly dead, and I want to go ahead and take it off the board since it is a pretty significant threat. So I will roll a 6 dice attack. My initial roll nets me 3 hits and a crit. I will use charging weapons to re-roll. Unfortunately, it lands on battle stations, which I can't use, so the attack will stand at 3 hits and a crit. My opponent will roll a blank on the defense die, but he does have an evade token, and that is enough to save his ship. He is 1 hull away from destroyed, and therefore I fell 1 hull short of taking him out this round. Again, the flagship with the extra dice from Denatra, the reroll, anything like that would have been really, really beneficial to have here. Unfortunately, I had none of that, and I wasn't able to take him off the board this round. Rolling into round 7, I had elected to take the Aux token and use the Scimitar ship ability to remain cloaked after firing. I actually made a mistake on my maneuver dial. I meant to do a bank to the right, and I wound up selecting a bank to the left. So a bank to the left leaves me no firing solution on my opponents, but it does give me the opportunity to use another sensor echo and at least get out of the arc of the Burrell. Unfortunately, a bank to the right would have enabled me to finish off the battle cruiser before he could have shot at me this round. I would have taken shots from the Burrell because we would have bumped, and I would have had no action, but I think that would have been a better maneuver, and I do think this was a mistake that wound up costing me pretty dearly in the end. Certainly not the first mistake I made in this game. My opponent attacks with his battle cruiser, and he rolls 2 hits and 2 battle stations. He has no battle stations to convert, so he is left with 2 hits. I roll my defense dice and I get 1 evade. However, my opponent, in an outstanding demonstration of sportsmanship, points out that I only rolled 5 dice instead of 6 that I should have rolled, and allows me to roll the 6th dice, which gives me the 2nd evade, and I wind up nullifying the battlecruiser's attack in this round. In case you're wondering why I think I made a mistake in my bank to the left instead of a bank to the right, and that has ended up costing me, the reason for that's going to become apparent very, very soon. This is where that bank to the left is really going to hurt me. To get arc on my opponents, I need to do a 4 come about. On the Riemann Warbird, the 4 come about is a red maneuver, so that's going to give me an Ox. The maneuver also lands me within range 1 of the mines, which give me another Ox. So I'm going to take a double Ox this round, which really puts me behind the 8 ball for the rest of the game. This is a situation where Captain Salatrell is going to come in really handy. Her captain ability is going to let me fire before his skill 9 Captain Corps, so I will get to take the battlecruiser off the map before it gets a chance to shoot at me. However, had I done that 1 extra damage 2 rounds ago, it would have made all the difference in the world in this game right now, because this attack then would be focused on the bird of prey rather than having to basically do a bunch of overkill on the battlecruiser. This is also where we made the mistake, or I made the mistake, of claiming the captain's skill against Klingons when I actually named independence at the beginning of the game. So that was definitely an error on my part, but it was certainly unintentional. The attack is 4 hits and a crit. He doesn't have any way to possibly survive that, and so that is going to take the battlecruiser off the map. Once again, 4 hits and a crit against the bird of prey would have made all the difference in the world in this game at this point in time. So, just 1 damage here or there can sometimes make the difference in a game. is going to attack with his Burrell. He rolls 2 hits and a crit with no modifications. My defense dice again fall a little bit short. I'm able to cancel 2 but not the critical hit, and I end up with an engine room fire for a critical hit, which makes my turns red maneuvers. I've already got 2 oxes, and this is just seriously crushing down my maneuverability. Once again, just a really bad crit at a really bad time in this game. That was just the theme of the game the whole way through. At this point in time, I'm not in great shape. I have to clear some oxes to be able to do anything. I can't make any hard turns because they're red maneuvers and I have dual ox. I'm not maneuverable. All I can really do is just roll straight ahead with green maneuvers and try to clear some oxes so I can eventually get turned around and shoot at this guy. In the meantime, he's going to be able to take a couple shots in my backside. I should have done a 2 straight maneuver because that's still green. Instead, I did a 1 straight and let my opponent remain within range 1 of me, so he gets a 5 dice primary weapon attack, and he winds up throwing 4 hits on that unmodified dice roll. Dice were definitely friendly for him tonight and not so great for me, but that's the nature of dice games. My defense dice come up blank again. I take 2 to the shields and 2 to the hull of the scimitar. At this point, I don't have much option. I have to do another straight maneuver to clear ox. My opponent does do me a favor and runs into me, so he loses an action, and then he will get to take another shot at my unprotected backside. My opponent attacks at range 2, unmodified, and ends up with a hit and a crit. He does, however, have a conversion, so it becomes 2 hits and 1 crit. I roll double blanks again on the defense die, and the scimitar is in absolute dire straits. This time the crit is a weapons malfunction. The weapons malfunction crit is very important because it mathematically eliminates me from being able to take my opponent out in a single shot. All he has to do is take an evade token and I can't touch him, and he needs to just get 1 damage on me and that's game over. As we get into the last round, I do a come about, take an ox, so I have no action. My opponent is able to get a battle stations, and he does have a target lock on my ship. And sure enough, I make an attack at range 3 with a primary weapon that's down 1 dice, so a 5 dice roll. And as is the theme of the night, I roll 5 dice and get 1 hit. My opponent, on the other hand, rolls his defense dice, and he gets an evade. So that is just the punctuation, the exclamation point on the end of the night for me. Things did not go my way, but honestly, I'm actually very pleased with the way this fleet played. My opponent returns fire. He rolls a hit and a crit. He does convert a blank to a hit, and that's all she wrote for me. That's mathematically impossible. I go ahead and roll my defense dice just for the heck of it to get all the bad luck out while I'm working on it, and of course get 2 battle stations, which I can do nothing with, and that's the ball game. The scimitar is destroyed. At the end of the day, I actually had a ton of fun. It was a competitive match. These fleets actually battled each other pretty well. At the end of the day, I have to credit the victory to my opponent for his superior positioning and just overall better flying skills than what I had. He had himself exactly where he wanted to be. He had me exactly where he wanted me to be, and it really paid off for him. That's something that comes with experience, and certainly he has the edge in experience. I think that the fleet that I fielded, the Sledgehammer fleet, despite being restricted to faction pure, was competitive in this match, and had it been flown by somebody with a little bit more talent, or had I trusted my instincts early on, I think the outcome of this game is significantly different than what we saw. Certainly there were some unlucky critical hits that came through at some very bad times. There were some really bad dice rolls, but all of that's going to happen. That's part of the game. I do feel like, you know, we were in it all the way to the end. As a matter of fact, if you go back and look, there were 2 rounds where it was down to the Scimitar and the Burrell. The 1-hour timer actually would have expired during the first of those rounds. So had we been playing with a timer rather than a death match, I actually would have come out with a victory, although I certainly did not deserve it. My opponent, all credit to him, he played a heck of a good game. He was a tremendous sportsman the entire time, and he flew his fleet very, very well, and it is a very well designed fleet. Certainly more intelligently designed than the Sledgehammer that I put together. Although, again, I think I would really like to see a rematch here and see, you know, now that I've seen his fleet, he'd already seen mine. I'd love to see us play again and see where it comes out, because I think we might end up with a really, really close match. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. This video was a lot of work. It was about 4.5 hours worth of editing, mostly because I'm not very good at video editing, but I want to know if that's worth the time. I'm happy to do it. If you guys want to see more matches like this, if you want to see more commentary like this, more rounds, more games on Tabletop Simulator, let me know. If this is cool, if you like this, just throw a comment down below and let me know, so I know that it's worth my time to do this, because it does take a lot of time in editing to put this together, and I'm happy to do it. But if it's not going to be something anybody's interested in, then there's no point in me spending all the time editing these videos. So please drop a comment below. Really appreciate it. I'll take any feedback, whether it's positive or negative. I can't get better if I don't know what you guys think I'm doing wrong. So you know, feel free to let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Captain Ironsides. I'll catch you next time.